This is breaking right now. There has been an active shooter situation just outside the White House in one of its entrances. The Secret Service has had to respond. Let's get to all the details.
Apparently was directed toward the White House. If you get toward the west side of the White House, and we're trying to figure out precisely where this was, you have the old executive office building, now called the Eisenhower Executive Office Building, which is kind of a big complex if you're working from west to east toward the White House. So we know that he was firing in the direction of the White House, and this is the preliminary report from someone who's very senior and would have direct knowledge of this information. Again, a lot of people in town. There was one source that had, questioned me earlier, even before we had this information. There's a lot of motorcyclists in town for the Memorial Day events. They always come for this time, and people thought it might have been, motorcycles backfiring or something like that. There's quite a cacophony of that. But this is clearly someone who came up and was firing at the direction of the White House. And the president, of course, is at the White House today.
So it's sounding like the preliminary reports are saying there's multiple perimeters to the White House complex. This is on the outermost perimeter. That a gentleman brandished a pistol. Secret Service saw that. The gentleman engaged fire with Secret Service, 2 to 3 shots, and the Secret Service returned fire and now have possession of the intruder. What does this possession mean? We'll know more as the evening goes on. It does also sound, again, preliminary reports, that a civilian was hit in Crossfire, either from the initial intruder or from the Secret Service. Some of this is still a little fuzzy. That, again, we're putting back together.
Hey, Chad, Kevin here. If I could just get you to break down again, based on what you've heard, this person was taken down. Does that mean they have been neutralized, or do you think they sort of made physical contact with this person? I'm just trying to get some clarity there.
I was told that they were shot because the Secret Service returned fire against this individual.
So now let's move to get some more details on what happened with that civilian. There's some conflicting reports. Let's get to this other news feed
from the shooter, and we're assuming the rest of those shots came from Secret Service. In your experience, how many guns are right there available? If a shooter opens fire at the White House, is there many guns that are able to be trained on them?
Absolutely. I mean, you have snipers, you have people all over the place. This is one of the most heavily fortified facilities in the United States. Again, I cover Congress. I walk into the Capitol every day, and I probably pass anywhere just on a routine day 10 to 15 officers, and they're all armed, and these aren't even the heavily armed officers. The White House is fortified in a different way. So, yeah, I mean, that's where you might get up in that number until, as according to my source, that this suspect was taken down pretty quickly. And again, as I say, there are other, police forces in that area of Washington, D.C., the Metro Transit Police, Washington, D.C. Police, Capitol Police are not very far, George Washington University Police. You might have, if it's something that's just off the White House grounds, a convergence. Park Police, National Park Service is not very far. The National Mall, you might have a lot of people jumping into this depending on what the request might be or what officers.
They were also saying, incidentally, that the White House is now on complete lockdown.
Again, not too long ago, when we had somebody show up at Mar-a-Lago, perhaps in a similar fashion to this. You mentioned the security presence and posture around the White House. One would expect it would be one of the most secure areas in the world, certainly in the country. So if somebody was in the vicinity and they're just shooting off, they had to have understood that they weren't going to get that close to the White House. I mean, for someone to do that and just shoot in the general direction, they had to have known that there would be a response pretty quickly. This couldn't have been somebody who thought they were getting the element of surprise here. It doesn't sound like someone very strategic.
Yeah, and I'm going to jump in on that. The best that we have right now is that there was a single male that brandished a pistol at one of the outer perimeter gates at the White House. Again, there's multiple perimeters because Donald Trump is there. Security is even more heightened when the president's on location. And in this instance, brandished pistols shot at 2 to 3 times is what it's sounding like. and then the Secret Service returned fire in the neighborhood of 6 to 10 shots and now have the suspect detained. There was a citizen also involved, unfortunately was injured in some of this crossfire. Let's get to two more clips here that are going to give us a little bit more detail as to the initial response by the police and the Secret Service. So I'm going to pause that if you can hear this correctly. There's in the neighborhood of, I'll count it again, in the at least 10 shots were fired. It sounds like the suspect gave 3 and the Secret Service then responded with multiple. And you can see here in this news feed, there was an immediate response even while these shots were fired. So let's count these off and just see if we can place this. I counted 16. So again, you can see the perimeter is built now on top of the initial perimeter that the White House security details have. So again, that was the initial response from the Secret Service and the multiple police agencies around. I wanted you to notice, too, on the picture below this, just so that you can have an idea of the proximity to the White House. It was very close. There's a red dot on the bottom of this picture that you can see is up and to the left of what is ultimately the White House. The White House with the greenery is there in the middle. Just below the south end of this greenery is the White House itself proper. Just here, again, with this orientation of this picture, the left is the Eisenhower building is going to be up over to the diagonal left, and obviously the left is where we house a number of dignitaries when they're in town, etc. So it was officially within the complex of the White House. That is all of the details that we have at the moment. So again, that's all the details that we have at the moment. This is breaking news that there were shots fired within the White House complex with President Trump being inside the White House. All news reports are saying that he is safe. The White House is on lockdown, and multiple levels of detail and security have been deployed. It does sound like one civilian was injured in crossfire. One male intruder brandishing a pistol at one of the outer entrance perimeters to the White House complex brandished this pistol towards Secret Service, shot 3 times, and Secret Service returned fire in the neighborhood of 10 to 12 shots. The individual is now detained. I'm not certain. Again, some of these details are very preliminary. We are not certain if the individual is deceased or not, or if the civilian is deceased. We just don't know if there's any critical nature to any of the wounds. That's the latest. If you do like news like this, please do us a favor and subscribe to the channel. We also have a couple other videos over my right shoulder that you may enjoy, and we'll see you in the next video.